I heard that there.
What is up, guys? We're going to do a little EPL rundown, and it is me, Leonardo, and we have a new addition here with Juan. Juan, what is up?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're going to start it off in a different way this week, and since the top of the table is so congested right now, and it looks like the top four teams are just out of this world, I'm going to ask this question. As we all know, from 04-05 to 08-09, it was the top of the English game. 12 of the 20 Champions League semifinalists were English teams. Every year, there was an English team in the Champions League final. Liverpool went twice, Man United went twice. So the question for you two is, would you take the top four from this year over the top four from that time period, which was Chelsea, Liverpool, United, and Arsenal? Open the floor there.
When you say, would you take them? What do you mean? You mean
do you prefer? When you look at those teams, when you look at that 5-year period, that's Lampard, that's Gerrard, that's Ronaldo, that's Thierry Henry. That's right after the Arsenal team was just invincible. Every year in the Champions League final, multiple years where 3 of the 4 Champions League semifinalists were English. Champions League winners. We had an English versus English final. Take those teams versus United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City. Now, who you got? Who you taking?
Man, I think if we're looking at the top 4 of this season versus top 4 of that season, or top 3 even
of that time period, those 4 teams.
If it's only those 4 teams, damn man, I prefer back then, I think. But if it's anything more outside of those 4 teams, you're going to be missing a Leicester City if you prefer right. That time period. You're going to be missing probably Tottenham player, Bale. You know, well, I mean, not you have him now.
Well, Bale was a kid. Bale was a kid at that time, but I get what you're saying.
But I mean, in Arsenal, Thierry Henry, you mentioned him. You're going to be missing him as well if you prefer today's. But those games were sick back then, man. That's when the EPL was the EPL. And I hope it's the EPL now moving forward. Like if this isn't just a fake kind of glimpse, I think I hope this keeps on going. Juan, what you think?
Okay, so it's just a difficult comparison because when you look at that time period, you can already, like, you're comparing, the success of such teams, especially at the European level, which, it's just a difficult comparison. I will take, of course, the teams back then. You have, the time with, that Chelsea team with Lampard and Drogba, making UCL history, or the fact that you had, we're talking about the Sir Alex Ferguson era, which, changed football at an international level, really. So yeah, I think it's a very difficult comparison. But with that being said, the way that the EPL and the teams have managed to dominate in the last few years, both in UCL and Europa League, gives you it has me really hopeful for the present and the future of the Premier League. You have a team like Manchester City, which with Pep Guardiola has been elevating the level of the game, both inside and outside of England. The level of managers with again Pep and Klopp, having Mourinho for a couple of years, and they're pretty much the best managers in the world. Solskjaer doing such a good job with Man U. I think it's just exciting. But of course, I will have to, if you give me a choice, like which team will you play with in FIFA? I will definitely have to go with the classics for sure.
Right. So I think that there were a couple really interesting points there. Leo, when you look at the top of the top, in the way back years, that they might take the cake. I mean, you have legends of the game. You have legends of the game on the field. You have legends of the game in the dugouts. Because all four of those teams also, that's Rafa Benitez, Sir Alex Ferguson, Jose Mourinho, Arsene Wenger. Those might be the four best coaches in EPL history.
The four horsemen.
What?
The four horsemen.
Those are the four horsemen. And I know that City has Pep, Klopp is at Liverpool, but Tuchel and Ali aren't exactly the same. And I know Tuchel just won a Champions League, but I mean, Tuchel and Jose Mourinho, those are two different levels. And Ali and Arsene Wenger are not on the same universe. But what I will say is, when you look at the depth of the EPL, it is ridiculous now. I mean, anybody can beat anybody. What I will also point out is, when you talk about European history, remember, between 17-18 and now, there's been an English team in the final in all but 1 year. We just had an England versus England final. We had an England versus England final 2 years ago. So there is still, let me put it this way, there's an argument to be had. And the fact that there's an argument to be had compared to a 5-year time period where England was the top of the world is pretty impressive. And I mean, we'll talk through this, but there's actually a time period at the end of September and into the first week of October where Man City goes Chelsea, PSG, Liverpool in 3 straight games. Those are going to be the 4 best teams in Europe. When you really look at it, City, Liverpool, PSG, and Chelsea might be the 4 best teams in Europe. So I know we're throwing PSG in there, but that just speaks to how good the league is right now. So just to go through this weekend in games.
You forgot Arteta as one of those coaches too that's doing big things.
Oh, of course. I mean, we're going to talk about this week. And I mean, of course, you have to start with the fact that Arsenal got that very strong 1-0 win against the worst team in the league. So, I mean, we have to start there. We have to finish there. We have to keep going through the fact that Arsenal, for the love of everything gracious, put points on the board. Scored a goal against Norwich City.
We'll get to the weekend's winner, but that's a very good pick, I would think.
So what I was going to say is, and I'll let both of you guys answer this and then I'll answer. If you're somebody who hadn't watched the EPL this weekend, what are the 3 things that you saw this weekend that are, you need to know that happened? What were your 3 need to watch things in the EPL from this weekend?
Okay, so I guess I'll go first. The 3 things that you definitely need to know. Cristiano Ronaldo's back in the EPL. I would say that will be one of the first. Keep an eye out on Chelsea as a contender for really to take it all. And keep an eye out on Chelsea. And number 3 would have to be Benitez doing some of the best work in signings that I've seen in recent EPL in recent years, with 2 signings in Townsend and Gray that are working out great for him in the beginning of the season, and we'll have to see how he plays out for the rest of it.
those are good ones. I mean, you do have to look at the table, and Everton's up there with United, Chelsea, and Liverpool, and they've scored 10 goals. I mean, they're there. So
Solid start, yeah.
I'd like to say that that's more Rafa than Everton, considering the jersey I'm wearing. But anyway, Leo, your thoughts?
All right. So Cristiano not only was back at the league, but he scored twice, which if you weren't somebody that watches this every day, I would say that's a big feat, because a lot of new players, hot stars, recent signings of multi-million-dollar deals come in, and for the first game, they don't score. And I'm not talking about Messi. I'm talking about people like Grealish. Lukaku did the same thing. Good for him, but he wasn't there this week. It wasn't the first debut this weekend. Ronaldo scored. The boy is back. I think that's number one. Number two, Crystal Palace beat Tottenham, which you'd be like, what the fuck, any other weekend. But they got a red card. They got a penalty shortly after, and that fucked them up. They weren't doing so hot. They were doing like one of the minimum to win, 1-0 almost every game and parking the bus. But to have a shitty ass team in Crystal Palace beat them 3-0, that's pretty bad. The next one is a toss-up between Arsenal winning or Wolves winning. I think I might go with Wolves winning. I've been wanting them to win for a while. I think they got a new signing, right? A Korean that scored a goal. I think that was him. And that's going to be my third pick.
So my three, I'm going to take two from Leo, because I mean, Ronaldo coming back to the EPL is the biggest story of the week. I mean, there's not really an argument there. Crystal Palace beating Tottenham is, of course, a massive story. And the way that Tottenham lost that game, huge. They got no shots in the first half, and then they lost 3-0 to a Palace team that's not that great. The third thing, though, is Mohamed Salah getting his 100th goal. That is now the most Premier League goals for a winger, 100. And some of the stats, and I sent this to Leo yesterday, some of the stats that Mohamed Salah has. Most goals in a season, 34. Most Premier League goals as a winger, 100. Most consecutive open match days, or most consecutive match days scored, 5. Most player of the months in one season, which I think is actually stupid, 3. Most teams scored against in one season, 18. Most games scored in one season, 24. Fewest minutes to reach 50 goals. Most goals in a season by an African in the Premier League. So some of those, yeah, I realize are very niche stats, but I mean, the guy's ridiculous. The guy is a phenom. 100 goals as quickly as he got it, as a winger, not as a forward, not as a goal poacher.
Pause. I got a real problem with calling him a winger. Go on.
Does he play centrally, or does he play on the wing?
He plays as a forward on the wing.
Does he play center forward?
He plays right forward.
It's not a winger, dude. What are you talking about?
He is a right winger. If you, I don't want to be stupid and jovial here, or juvenile here. If you play, as simple as this, if you turn on FIFA, Mohamed Salah, RW, right winger, not right forward, not center forward, not attacking mid, right winger. He is
because he plays on the wing.
Yeah.
What about Dani Alves? Is he a winger?
He's a fullback. He's a right back.
He plays on a wing.
If Dani Alves had 100 goals, then we would be talking about it's impressive that Dani Alves had 100 goals as a winger. He's a winger.
We can move on, but Mo Salah is a forward. He just plays on the wing, but he is a forward.
So even so if you take away that he's a winger, if you say he's a center forward, his center forward numbers are up there with Kane, with Lewandowski, with Haaland, with Cristiano. So if you took him away from a winger,
I like that better.
So if you want to compare him as a winger, he's better than any winger not named Messi or Mbappe. If you take him as a forward, he's better than any forward not named Lewandowski or Haaland. So whichever one you want to put him in, he's amazing.
Yes.
Whichever one you want to put him in. If you want to pick one, and he's crazy good at either one.
I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay, so going through, going through this weekend's games, I mean, there weren't really too many wild shouts. Of course, we talked about Crystal Palace, Tottenham. That was kind of nuts. Good for Wolves getting the 2-0. What I actually think is pretty interesting is Southampton drawing with West Ham and West Ham losing Mikel Antonio. And then, of course, I mean, I know that City didn't exactly have a huge win over Leicester, but the top 4 teams, I know that Everton are technically in 4th right now, but the top 4 teams in England showed why they're the top 4 teams in England. I mean, you got a 3-0 for Chelsea, a 3-0 for Liverpool, and a 4-1 for United. I actually heard an interesting piece of commentary about how the 4-1 for United shows the difference of fans in the stands this year. Because at 1-1, you remember that game was 1-1. At 1-1, if there aren't fans in the stands, Newcastle might have thought they could have got something out of that game. But with fans in the stands, Ronaldo's first game, everybody going wild, United were winning that game. There was no way United wasn't winning that game.
So you're saying crowd, you think crowd would enhance, well, you think crowd would I don't know, motivate Newcastle enough to beat Manchester United at a game like this? You think they could actually pull it off?
I think the other way around. I think the crowd amplified for United. The fact that they could lean on the crowd to get the points made the difference.
100%. I think there was like actual statistics from the Bundesliga throughout last year pointing out how much better the teams were doing as a home advantage with the crowds, and how there was a dip in their performance without the crowds, especially for teams fighting in the lower tier.
Mm-hmm.
So 100%, I would have to agree with that. I think that it was really special. If you happen to catch the pre-match the scenes, as far as the scene in Old Trafford, there was a buzz definitely going with as soon as they came in the pitch. You heard the crowd singing Cristiano Ronaldo's name, of course, and a very good take of Sir Alex Ferguson smiling in the stands while this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll definitely have to agree with that. They definitely pushed them over the edge in a game where maybe they didn't really need it necessarily. I think that if you're a Newcastle fan, you're definitely worried. They didn't have the best of transfer summers, and with that and their poor start, it's definitely given them enough reasons to worry.
Right. And I mean, even though Leeds really got pumped by Liverpool, it was great to see the fans at Ellen Road really up for it. It was probably their biggest game, like just to get up for in like 15, 20 years, because they were up last year, but there were no fans in the stands. This year, fans in the stand. You got Liverpool coming in, and it'll be like that for when United come in and City come in and Chelsea come in. These Leeds fans are starving to see top class football, and watching that game, because of course I watched every second of that game. The first 10 minutes, you saw it from the Leeds players. Leeds went after that game hard in the first 10 minutes. And that's, in my opinion, like 40% the way Leeds play and 60% of the Leeds players saying, you know what, we're going to put on a show. The fans are up for it. The fans want this. We want to give the fans something to watch. We got a big guy. We got a big gun in European football here. We're going to give them a bloody nose. We're going to give them a bloody nose. And those first 10 minutes of the game were frantic. And they were frantic because Leeds went after it. And I think that Leeds continued to go after it. And that's probably why Liverpool won the game 3-0. But it was good to see. I mean, all of these games, it's good to see fans in the stands. And it really does change so very much about the games. Just rolling through some other results. Brighton beat Brentford. That's a shame for Brentford. They were looking so good early. First loss of the season. Hey, Brighton's got 3 wins. I mean, I know. We saw Tottenham at the top of the table going into the international break, but after that loss by Tottenham, Brighton is ahead of Tottenham. Brighton's got 9, Tottenham's got 9, but Brighton scored 5 goals to the 3 for Tottenham. So I know Brighton lost to Everton, but Brighton is feeling very, pun intended, bright about their start to the season. And then, Arsenal, Norwich. I mean, I said on the preview show, Arsenal needed to blow out Norwich. They didn't. They won. It counts as 3 points, but they won 1-0. So we're going to continue to circle the drain on Arsenal. I mean, I don't know if either one of you wanted to say anything about Brighton against Brentford. I'm assuming that Arsenal Norwich is the bigger talking point. If you want to go into Brighton Brentford, we absolutely can. But
I'll just say that this is the first glimpse of what they're made out of, right? Because anybody that loses against Brighton is a concern. If you see Manchester United, Chelsea, Liverpool, one of these teams lose against Brighton, then you're going to be like, what the fuck? And Brentford has been looking scary for the past, I don't know, ever since the start of the season. Mm-hmm. And to get beat against Brighton, then it's just kind of like, all right, well, this is a team that came from the lower league. They're not all there yet. And that's a definitive, we were thinking that.
And you even said, wait, I'm not going to let you off the hook there. You're even going to say that even though Brighton's won 3 of their first 4 games.
Yeah, Brighton's trash. They haven't played against people. They haven't played against who?
3 of 4. 3 of 4 is 3 of 4. I mean, yeah. I know that the wins, let me double check, were over.
The wins were against Watford, Burnley. So that's like their direct competition. So I think that they're doing great. And the fact that even if they lost against Everton's not a direct competition for Brighton. Brighton are a team fighting for staying in the league. And I think this start just solidifies their place in a team that belongs as a team that belongs in the EPL. I'd be worried if I was, Burnley or Newcastle. if I have to come up against a Brighton team that's looking very, very solid.
I guess where I'm coming from on that is they're not the Leicester scenario that I may have thought ignorantly that was going to play out with Brentford. I mean, it might still happen, right? But they were looking scary, and they lost against a mediocre team, and yeah,
but
that's all.
But Brentford is the same. They're in the same boat as a team like Brighton.
Now they are, to me.
Well, of course. I mean, they're a team coming up, and they're fighting to stay in the race, to stay in the. If they don't get relegated at the end of the season, that's a successful season for them. If
Sure.
Brentford ends 17th in the league, that they did their job. We cannot be comparing them to Leicester with their when they have been fighting for top 6 in the past couple of seasons, and when they're looking the way they are, under Brendan Rodgers. So
the comparison was made against the Leicester from what 5 seasons
5 years ago. 5 years ago. And I don't think that there's much of a comparison. And actually, it's funny and ironic. Leicester is 1 point ahead of Brighton and 1 place ahead of them in the table. And Leicester have a -2 goal difference, while Brentford have a +1. So it's actually funny we're having this. And Leicester's lost 2 games and Brentford's only lost 1. So it's funny we're having this discussion, and they're actually competition this year, which is actually it's just ironic we're having this discussion. I mean, I'm not going to pass off Brentford as a truly terrible team. And in the same vein, I'm not saying that Brighton are great, but there are a lot of people that looked at what Brighton should have done last year, and they're doing it this year. And as Juan said, the 3 wins that Brighton have on the books now could be massive at the end of the season, because if they're in a relegation battle, which they shouldn't be, but if they are with Burnley, Watford, and Brentford, they've beaten those 3 teams already. Those are 9 points in the books. If you're somebody who's fighting to not get relegated, points in the books are massive. Now, I know that kind of contradicts my point of, Brighton aren't bad, because if Brighton weren't bad, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But at the very, very minimum, they're doing good things to keep themselves in the league. At a maximum, we're talking about a team that could compete for the middle of the table. I mean, wouldn't be shocked if they're in that same tier with Wolves, Crystal Palace, that tier. Wouldn't be shocked. I don't think it'll happen, but I wouldn't be shocked.
Absolutely. I think they are having the kind of start that the Leeds had last year, with Bielsa, and unfortunately right now Leeds had a very tough games in the beginning of to start their season. But yeah, I think that Brighton's looking, their future is looking like Zolli said, very bright, pun intended, of course. Especially when you consider that the cutoff point for to stay in the league is around 40 points, and Brighton are 25% of the way there already.
Yeah.
So, looking good.
Yeah, to be an early. I like this guy, Leo. We got to keep him around. I don't
like him.
To be 25% to safety, because 40 is usually the cutoff point. Be 25% to safety after game week 4. That takes a lot of pressure off. Now, of course, we'll do a preview show, and for all I know, Brighton could have a terrible next 5 games, and they could win none of them. But where we stand right now, 9 points out of 12 is huge. And I also say that that's huge because a lot of them were tighter games, like a 1-0 win. You easily draw that game. And now we're talking about, that's points dropped. So getting a win instead of a draw is massive. So moving on to Arsenal Norwich. I mean, Leo, I feel like you were trying to give me a tough time about it with, oh, big win for Arsenal. I mean,
not you necessarily. I was trying to give Arsenal a hard time.
If I'm wearing an Arsenal jersey right now and not a Liverpool jersey, I'm burning my Arsenal jersey. I mean, still have a -8 goal difference. We scored 1 goal all year. Norwich are the worst team in the league.
I think it was it gave Arteta a chance to save his job.
One more weekend.
Exactly. He just got one more. There you go. That's the way to put it. He just got one more weekend because honestly, the poor Aubameyang, man. I mean, poor guy, good for Bellerin jumping ship right before it finally, got almost completely underwater.
But is it poor Aubameyang? I mean, he got paid. Well, I mean, he could have got paid by Barcelona, but he got paid. So
True, he's getting paid, but after scoring that goal, I don't think he was smiling that much. He was smiling because they're getting the win, but at the end of the day, it's like, should I really stay here? Am I gonna be fighting for relegation through the end of the year here? I don't know.
You say he'd be getting paid either by Barcelona, but would he
want to be at Barcelona? Yeah, I know.
That's another story.
That's another story for another day, talking about how Barcelona have just totally screwed everything up. And I'm actually looking forward to, I know we're mainly talking Premier League. I'm looking forward to later when Bayern absolutely stuff it to Barcelona. I can't see that game being anything less than like 3 or 4-0 Bayern. But that's another talk for another day. I don't like Barcelona. This just is the cherry on top of their shit sandwich. So, and I also don't think that Arsenal winning and getting another week for Arteta is a good thing for Arsenal. They need to get rid. They need to move on. And I think that this just delays the inevitable. So the next match was Man U Newcastle. I feel like we talked through that enough. United are United. Newcastle are going to have a tough time staying up, in my opinion. Southampton West Ham. I was kind of running around doing some stuff during the 10 o'clock games, so I kind of had one eye on it, but no eyes on Southampton West Ham, and it looks like for good reason. I mean, Antonio getting the red card, which is going to cause him to miss time, really hurts. And what I have to say, though, the bigger thing is Southampton giving good teams bloody noses. I mean, they gave United a bloody nose. If you think West Ham are a good team, and I mean, they're in the Europa League, so I guess they have to kind of be seen as a good team. They gave them a bloody nose. So maybe Southampton isn't as bad as everybody thinks they are. I know Leo has said that they have some exciting players on the team. Maybe we need to have a moment to talk about Southampton. But before I give it over to you guys, let's also remember there was a point last season where Southampton were top of the table, and it wasn't that early. It was at a somewhat, there were games that had been played and Southampton were sitting on the table. Same team that beat Liverpool at home last year. I know it was a much maligned Liverpool team, but it is what it is. And now Southampton played 4 games and they've only lost 1. So what are your guys' thoughts on Southampton?
Southampton is just looking at the results real quick. I mean, they are a scrappy team. You know, they've been scraping by. What I mean by that is they've been getting results that you could consider good. For example, tying against Man U, which is looking very solid at the point. But at the same time, they lost their season opener against Everton, and they also tied against Newcastle, their last go around, last weekend. So after you have a poor season opener, then come back and tie against Man U, you're feeling really good, and then you go and tie against Newcastle. It's like, what's going on here? So I think they are doing what they're supposed to do. We're talking about a middle of the table team, and I think at this point they are looking exactly like that. We'll have to see what their fate's gonna be coming up against Man City next weekend, and also what's gonna happen against teams that are more on, let's say their level when they go against Wolves right after that.
So and Leo, this is actually a good pivot point to you. You and I'm not trying to say anything here. I'm just trying to lay it out, and this is actually a good question. So you kind of took a bite out of Brighton, which is fair enough. So Brighton have played 4 games: win against Burnley, win against Watford, lost to Everton, win against Brentford. Southampton have played 4 games: loss against Everton, draw against Man U, draw against Newcastle, draw against West Ham. Both teams have 4 games played, only have lost 1. Brighton has won 3. Southampton has drawn 3. Obviously, aside from the Newcastle game, Southampton have played a tougher schedule. So, to pivot over to you, Leo, which one is more impressive to you?
Southampton's a better team. Right?
I didn't ask that question. I asked which is more impressive to you.
Brighton is more impressive, but Brighton is more impressive. I'm going to answer your question. Brighton's more impressive. Southampton, I'd like players that, their offensive line, I would say, is great. The West Ham offensive line is great. I like watching both of those teams pass around and shoot ball and score some goals. Their defense sucks. They're not a 90-minute team. They play well for 45 minutes, and then the second half they kind of just poop out.
Okay.
So, and both teams are like that. Brighton is like that. All middle of the table teams, I would say, give a good 60 minutes, 45 minutes, and then 15 minutes of the second half. And then at the end, they just kind of, they give up. They just, I don't know. They don't have the legs. They don't have the lungs for it. So this game, I didn't watch it either, but I think it's ridiculous to not win against a team that has a red card. I saw a defender clear out a ball right from the line for the West Ham, from the West Ham team. So Southampton had the upper hand there. They dominated the whole game from the possession. But yeah, I mean, all in all, it's a boring game, and it's a game that it's just 2 shitty teams trying to battle it out.
West Ham are in the Europa League. West Ham just absolutely throttled Leicester City, and you just called West Ham a shitty team. I'm trying to stay consistent. Again, this is before Romelu Lukaku signed for Chelsea. You had Leicester City in the top 4 over Chelsea. West Ham absolutely mauled Leicester City. And now you're 2 weeks later saying that West Ham is a shitty team, when, of course, they were down to 10 men.
Leicester's a better team.
We're not talking about that. We're talking about the fact that you just said that West Ham is a shitty team
They are. This shit ain't gonna last. This is like the match day 4. Where do you think they're gonna end up last season? At the end of the season, where did they end up last season?
They were 6th, I think.
They're a middle of the table team.
6th is not. Oh, I'm going to double check. I forgot if it was 6th or 7th, but 6th or 7th is not middle of the table. They were 6th. They were 6th.
6 is
with
where the
65 points.
6 is where the beginning of the middle of the table starts.
Leo, they were 2 points off of the Champions League.
6th place, 17th place,
Leo,
middle of the table.
They were 2 points off of the Champions League. They were in the top 4 most of the second half. You can't say that West Ham were shitty last year. You could say they're not the same team as last year because they had Lingard last year, but you can't say West Ham were a middle of the table team last year. They were very much so a top team, a top 2 to 6, or actually, when you really look at it, 2 to 8 were super close last year. West Ham were in and about the top teams in the league last year. And that was due to a lot of crazy stuff that happened. And you could argue if that was a fluke, but West Ham were definitely one of the better teams
Last year, one of the better teams. 6th on the table.
I think this would be a great. I definitely agree with Zolli, and the main thing there to see is we got and it was a huge loss actually for them to lose Lingardinho in the transfer
market.
In the transfer in this summer, but and actually a good pivot point to come back and talk about a little bit more about the Man U Newcastle game, because Lingard scored in that game, coming off the bench, when you have not only the beauty of Cristiano kind of overshadowed a lot of different things. The fact that Jadon Sancho also got a start, at Old Trafford, and Lingard coming off of, I think he scored maybe 1 or 2 goals during international break, and then coming, to Old Trafford and scoring off the bench. It's looking really good for him in a very deep team where he has a ton of competition in that midfield. So good for him, and also wanted to talk maybe a little bit more about specifically the game, not so much the fact that obviously Cristiano's debut and the fact that he scored 2 goals is great, but maybe want to touch a little bit more on the way the game went down and how how things really unfolded.
Go for it. Let it rip.
Leo, I think Leo wanted to touch on that a little bit more.
Well, I mean, we mentioned it a lot this podcast, this episode. I think there's a lot to talk about, and the time is of the essence. But I will say that Lingard scoring is huge. Ronaldo scoring 2 goals overshadowed a lot of the other stuff that happened. Mainly, the one thing that I was going to get at is Bruno's beautiful goal from outside the box. I thought that's something to mention as well. There's also another goal, a sick-ass goal from the weekend. I can't remember what it was, but it was a sick-ass goal outside of the box. And I wanted to specifically mention that for Bruno.
Yeah, I think the goal that probably that was with Townsend yesterday, scoring goal of the season contender in match day 4 was kind of amazing. That game, the last game of the match, the week 4, I guess we could call it, was really interesting. You had Burnley really pressing down on Everton. They went up 1-0 off of it was a set piece, and then I think it was a corner, and then they got the ball back. They did like another cross, and then finally they were able to get that goal in. And 7 minutes later, Everton were up 3-1, which was kind of amazing to see. the stories from that game that I would say was, Townsend scoring. We have Demaral Gray scoring for the third consecutive game, where in his last 32 appearances, he had only scored twice with Leicester. So that was a huge signing, which I mentioned was one of the top three things from Benitez. For $1.7 million, he gets Townsend and Demaral Gray, and they are doing big things for him. When you have a guy like James Rodriguez earning millions, not even sitting on the bench.
Good old James. So, and those are great points. I mean, I am very interested to see if Gray puts his time in Leicester and his time in Leverkusen behind him, because, I mean, he came to Leicester very highly touted. They had very high hopes for him. And I think he actually, I forget if it was before Leicester or in his first couple seasons at Leicester, he put in some really bright performances, and then he just fell off a cliff, and then he was horrible for Leverkusen. So it's interesting to see what he could do at Everton. And Townsend, I don't want to downplay Townsend, but he gets a worldie every year. I mean, I don't want to say that Andros Townsend, he does it every year. I mean, it's what he does. And it kind of goes into my feeling on Bruno. Yeah, it's a great goal outside the box, but if you try that 4 times every game, eventually it's going to go in. And it's what he does. And I will say, while that does kind of come off as me shitting on Bruno, testing the goalie is important. And he tests the goalie with that shot, and you never know what happens on a rebound, particularly now that you have a goal poacher like Ronaldo, because his first goal was all about instinct. So if you have a guy like Bruno who's going to take pot shots from outside the box, you never know where it bounces. I mean, you have a guy like Ronaldo who has such a great instinct for goal. Let's say goalie's got to claw it out of the top corner. Ronaldo's on it. He's on it like white on rice. So he's good to go. What I wanted to just close with, because it conveniently works out this way, Man City, Chelsea, Liverpool all win. I mean, are those the 3 teams that we really need to watch for to win the league? I mean,
so I would say Chelsea. For me, we're talking about Man U, Liverpool doing big things, but Chelsea is looking the strongest, in my opinion. The fact that they only have one goal against, Lukaku putting in huge performances, and Tuchel, just really honing down on that defensive side of things, is really making them look like big contenders for the crown this season. And I mean, it's looking like a very, very good race. Man U has the depth to fight all the way through, and Liverpool is looking like they're fully back. I want to touch a little bit on, I don't know if we did touch on the Chelsea game, but I mean, the fact that Lukaku got a brace is just speaks volumes as far as the things they're doing. And from the Liverpool game, I don't know if you guys caught that live, but that injury for Harvey Elliott, man, what a bummer! Yeah. What a bummer, because he had a great start of the season. So unfortunate.
I mean, to touch on both points, I think that Lukaku signing, and this is a transfer market where Ronaldo and Messi moved. Lukaku signing is the biggest signing in Europe. And then going back to the Elliott injury, I mean, that's heartbreaking. I mean, even if you're a neutral, if you watch the way Harvey Elliott has played and the way Jurgen Klopp has trusted him, I mean, he gave him 3 consecutive starts, one of which against Chelsea. He looked so bright. And
18-year-olds, you know.
He's probably going to be out 6 months. It's a shame. I mean, the only thing that as a Liverpool fan that I'm slightly excited, or not excited, but optimistic about is pace was never his thing. So even if he's slowed down a step, I mean, he's not known for his pace. And Liverpool have plenty in the midfield, although they don't really have plenty in the attacking, and maybe Harvey playing more of an advanced midfield role helped cover their attacking. I can't even say attacking deficiencies. I can't even say that with a straight face when you have everybody in your front four scoring goals and attacking deficiency. But anyway, to be fair, there are injuries that have come in. I know Firmino is hurt, and I mean, I know Firmino has a goal, but he was so off last season, or the last couple seasons, to be fair. But yeah, Elliott is a big deal.
Who do you think is going to be his replacement?
Whose?
Elliott's.
More minutes from Oxlade-Chamberlain, more minutes from Keita. I mean, you could do so much with that midfield. We did for the last couple minutes. We haven't seen the Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson, but you could plug in Keita. You could Curtis Jones hasn't played a minute yet this year. I know it's
Henderson.
Yeah, you laugh about it, but James Milner is still around. I know James Milner isn't the sexiest of players, but he puts in a shift every time. There's plenty in the midfield. I mean, Minamino, everybody sleeps on this guy, but I don't. And that's not just because I'm a Liverpool fan, but if you look at it like from a bigger scale, he came in from Salzburg, then COVID happened. So he was in a lockdown in a new country. He's Japanese. He doesn't speak English. He's working through it. He speaks German. He speaks Japanese. He's trying to work through English. So he's got to go through that. Then last season starts. He plays sparingly. He scores the goal against Crystal Palace before Christmas, and then Liverpool loan him out. This offseason, he's had a full offseason. So I'm not going to sit here and say Taki Minamino is going to be the greatest player in the league, but I think he'll do a job. I would rather see what we have with Taki Minamino as a Liverpool fan than say, oh my God, Liverpool needs to spend 40 million pounds on Jeremy Doku.
Sorry guys, I'm getting a cramp.
Oh boy. But yeah, Chelsea definitely impressive. I said this on my last video with Leo. I think the title is going to come down to Chelsea and Liverpool. That's not to belittle City. That's not to belittle United. That's not to talk about the rest of the pack. But I think Liverpool are closer to 18-19 and 19-20, particularly if Virgil van Dijk is healthy. You could put any of three different center backs next to him, and it's locked tight. It's locked tight. City, I mean, it's difficult to discount City, but I just think that Chelsea and Liverpool are better. I know that that's rough analysis on a team that's 3-0-1 and they've allowed 1 goal and scored 11. But I just think that Chelsea and Liverpool are better. It's just my feeling. And I think for Liverpool fans that were belly aching about a 1-1 draw with Chelsea, they're going to take a step back and say, oh, those were the two best teams in England. And we're not really that upset. Just my feeling.
Yeah, no bias there, right?
Maybe a little biased, but remember when Liverpool were Liverpool, let's take 2021 out of the picture. That's a team that put up 97 and 99 points in back-to-back years.
No, Klopp's has done a fantastic job, and he will continue to do a fantastic job with whatever pieces he's given. The fact that the last season maybe people were sleeping a little bit on him. You have to remember his biggest defender and one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle in the whole team was missing. So I think that barring any injuries, they will definitely be big contenders. What is up with German coaches in the EPL doing big things? So it'll definitely be an interesting race to keep an eye out for moving forward.
Well, you do realize that Tuchel is a Klopp disciple. Klopp was at Mainz. Tuchel was at Mainz. Klopp was at Dortmund. Tuchel was at Dortmund. Yeah. So he didn't learn directly from Klopp. He was never on Klopp's staffs at those teams, but he was directly behind them on those teams. So it's a lot of Klopp principles that Tuchel tweaked. So, and it is good. It is good to see Tuchel doing well at Chelsea because he did disappoint at PSG. And it's definitely interesting to see. So any parting thoughts from you guys? It looks like we're pressing up on the hour mark here. Looks like Leo died. So it looks like it's just, Leo, are you alive?
Yeah, I'm on the floor.
You're on the floor. Okay. Any final thoughts from the floor, Leo?
Oh, fuck Liverpool.
Lovely.
Of course.
Okay. Juan, any final thoughts?
It's setting up to be a very interesting season, particularly in the middle of the table. When you have teams, doing, what Crystal Palace did against Tottenham, or when you have Brighton up there in the sixth spot, or Everton in the fourth spot. This early in the season, which is going to make it very, very exciting and very competitive for the people at the top to stay there. I would have to say what a big impact the key signings of all teams have done, and I forgot the Crystal Palace's new signing. His name, Edward something.
All of them. Odson Odor. Oh,
Edward.
Odson Edward.
There we go.
The signings, yes.
That guy, I mean, that was a bargain for 14 million euros coming in. First game on his debut, scoring 2 goals against Tottenham. Being the biggest scorer in the Scottish League, that's going to be huge for them. And again, I'm just happy and excited to see the EPL being with this buzz, this feeling that's created and has sort of relegated the rest of the leagues to like a second tier almost. And I'm just excited to see what they do today in the beginning of the Champions League.
Yeah, it would do a lot to deflate the start to Man U's season, and be a real shame if they lost to Young Boys today. Really would be. I'd cry personally. It would be a deep regret if Young Boys really put out a performance today. It would be upsetting. I mean, I would probably cry into my pillow tonight. Go Young Boys. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think the main things to see are just those top of the table matchups, because we do get another potential top of the table with Chelsea and Tottenham next weekend. So we'll see how that shakes out. And we'll talk about that more in the preview for next week. But definitely exciting, definitely entertaining, and yeah, it's a great start to the season. The top of the league is as impressive as it's been as we went through in more than a decade. So I just want to see how all of that really shakes out. But anyway, Thank you, Juan, for joining us. Leo, thanks as always. Hope your spasm unspasms.
Your
And,
crap, yeah.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again another time. Okay.
Thanks for
See you,
having me, guys.
boys. Take it
fun.
easy.
Later.